one of the things I really stress when I'm talking to new recruits is you will matter here. Your voice matters. And when you ask for feedback from people or new ideas for the firm, it sparks that entrepreneurial spirit.
Welcome to Actualizing Success. In this podcast series, our in-house advisors discuss today's finance and technology topics with an emphasis on solutions that embrace tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Kerry Wekelo, COO of Actualize Consulting. Today, I have Theresa Santoro, our Global Director of HR and Operations with me. The special thing about us is that this is our 18th year working together. Yeah, that's right, 18 years. Can you believe it? We have helped shape our culture at Actualize to make it a place that people want to come to work each day. And we wanted to share how we empower people to thrive and also how we have a little bit of fun along the way as well. So welcome, Theresa.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me. And wow, 18 years, when you say that out loud, it feels like even more of an accomplishment. That is truly amazing. I mean, I've loved every moment of working here with you. And 18 years, I'd say it again, 18 years. I'm excited to be here. And thank you again for asking me to join you on this one. I love doing a podcast, and this topic has definitely evolved into a passion of mine also. So I'm excited to share this with others as well.
Well, welcome. Well, I wanted to start with a fun story about Theresa that actually really helped me grow in my career. And is that Theresa came very damaged from a previous manager. And at Actualize, we trust people to do their job. If you get your task completed, we are fine with you doing some personal items during the day because we work remotely, right? So if you have a dentist appointment like Theresa had this morning, she's back at work already, ready to go. But before now, I did know she had a dentist appointment, but before, like if she was going to run to the store, let's say her daughter was sick and she was going to run to the store real quick to get some Tylenol. If she had a repair person coming in that might interfere with her work for 30 minutes, she would tell me, and I could tell she was so afraid to leave her desk. And I kept telling her over and over, we really don't care if you're away for a little bit. I trust that you're going to get it done. And this went on for years and years. And now we joke how long it took me to heal her from her former work trauma. So I'm so glad that Theresa's now finally chill in her role. Well, I can't say that exactly, but because she's so passionate. So Theresa, can you tell us what didn't work? I always like to start with what didn't work so we can improve upon it.
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear me giggling in the background. I mean, that is just spot on, how I felt about leaving my desk and about sharing every detail of the day with you. It's just hilarious when I look back at it and hear someone else talk about it in that way. But if anyone knows me well, they know two things about me when it comes to my job. Trust and loyalty are two very important words to me. And it may have had something to do with my Italian grandparents who drilled those words into me growing up, but they are two very important and actionable words when it comes to the way that I view my life and my career. And my career has always been a very important and large piece of my life. So they've just always, been a big key piece of my career and my life in general. And I believe that what was missing from my last manager was exactly that, just the trust and the loyalty, and coming to Actualize and having that trust bestowed upon me was just a huge change. And we'll get into how I view change later on. But I was viewed as the competition. And I think that for me was something that, diminished the trust factor. And that just didn't sit well with me, especially because I'm such a team player through and true. And I love working on teams. And I constantly felt as though I was viewed as the other team when all I wanted was to wear the same color jersey that she was. And this actually became a positive because it did help to shape me into what I did not want to do with my own direct reports. And at the time, I had 90 plus direct reports. So, that was a big factor. I knew that I wanted to make employees want to do their best and feel empowered. And so tried to turn that around. And some of the things I wanted to focus on and make part of my own leadership acumen at the time were doing just that, building trust and building relationships and really making sure my people knew that I was fostering that trust and building strong relationships with them to bring them to the next level in their career and to create a better workplace. I think that's something that you definitely did with me. And when we, worked on the culture here at Actualize and talked about it, I mean, that was just something. The whole goal of it was to make a better workplace. So it was really, opening up that communication and being transparent and using empathy to cultivate meaningful and lasting connections. It really did bring the workplace to another level. And I think treating others with respect and certainly listening to them, being responsive versus reactive is always best, in that approach. Another thing that I felt that was lacking was that she didn't delegate the tough tasks to me. And I was younger in my career and I really wanted to continue my career growth. And I just felt that, I needed to kind of turn that around and delegate more effectively to my own people. And this was a challenge for me for a long time. You can attest to that, Kerry. I mean, It was hard for me to take things off my own plate and to let someone or allow someone else to take them over. And I think that was like a direct correlation to that type of management style I was receiving. The third thing I would say is definitely ethical leadership and how I feel. I might find it hard to put into words how I feel about the importance of ethics and integrity, but being a high C on the DISC scale and being a born rule follower by nature, I always felt somewhat embarrassed about being that way. But now I've learned to embrace that over the years and turn it into things I excel in. And I'd like to see other people do that as well. Like contract reviews and security documentation and compliance within the organization itself were things that I really didn't have a chance to touch, but you trusted me to give those really, important items. And I definitely took the ethical side of myself and thrived with that. Kerry, what do you think makes people feel more empowered?
And going back to your example of the high C, and that means you are the ultimate rule follower, whereas I am a low C. So, me recognizing that Theresa's going to do much better on some of these, contracts and security documentation. I am a rule follower, but not like, it's more like I'm always going to be ethical and always do the right thing. But reviewing contracts and things of that nature, it really kind of spins me in a little bit of a tizzy. So I'm really thankful for that. But I think that's one of the things that, empowering you, because I knew that was your sweet spot, right? And I think that that's what we're going to talk about a lot today is, going to people's strengths, right? So, and making sure that they feel supported. So if I gave you something that wasn't in your sweet spot, you wouldn't feel as empowered and it would probably stress you out. So
absolutely.
Right. So I think that's been extremely something that I've really learned and something that I have to stop myself so many times. Like, don't push. If I'm pushing somebody, then that's not something that they want to do, right? So I need to take a step back and be like, okay, who's the best person to do this task within the organization? And that's the same way personally too in your life. If you're pushing somebody, nobody wants to be pushed, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that I wanted to share that we started doing years ago at Actualize was in our goal and performance reviews and really asking people questions. And so they do feel empowered for their career. So, for example, what can we do to better support your career aspirations? What are some things that you were proud of from your experience at Actualize? What is a challenge that you're currently facing? I feel like I find out the most information when I ask, what's a challenge? What's challenging you right now? Mm-hmm. And on my one-on-ones, I always ask this. And that's where I really get, because if you say, hey, how's it going? People are like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's great. Right. But if you're like, well, what's a challenge you're facing? They kind of have to come up with something. And I'm always like, it can be personally or professionally too, because if I know anything in life, it's that we're always going to be facing challenges, no matter what. It's just part of life. Yep. Another question that we ask is, what motivates you to do your best? And that's something that I think if I know even on I pretty much know within the organization what motivates most people. And I think that really helps, because it could be monetary for some people. It could just be giving another person a star player. It could be publicly recognizing. Maybe some people don't like to be publicly recognized, right? So you really have to understand what motivates each person. And then, one of the things that at first I was like, what do you want to professionally accomplish this year? And then I think it's been 2 years ago, we also asked, what do you personally want to accomplish this year? And I think understanding what the personal and the professional, I think, is really important. So you kind of know what somebody is looking to do for their own personal growth as well. And our people answer these questions at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and at the end of the year. Even if you cannot add to the goal and performance review process formally, you can still ask your team members these questions. Because I know a lot of times people say, hey, I'm not in charge of the goal and performance review. But you can still ask these questions, right? And then people want to be seen. They want to have an opinion, and they want to know you care. So really understanding their personal and professional aspirations can enable you to help your people thrive.
Yes. That was one of the immediate items of feedback that I gave you when we implemented that change to the goal and performance review process, because it was one of my most favorite changes we implemented at Actualize. And you know how I feel about change. I'm usually a little bit more risk adverse, and change is not high up there on my scale, but I absolutely loved this change. And the reason was, it got our people talking. It was a brilliant way to, solicit feedback from people and also just hear from them in general. And it actually turned the once tedious task, into a tool that all of us managers can now use to hear what our employees want to see more of, less of, and really draws out of their thoughts and both a personal and professional perspective. It really gives us the opportunity to hear them, to ask the right questions, and for them to open up to us, on a one-on-one basis. And that is such an important alignment to our culture at Actualize as well. So it fits just perfectly. Brilliant.
Yeah. No, I always say I try to think out of the box every year. And, 1 year I'm like, why weren't we doing this before? But it's okay. Now we are. So all is good. Well, another thing that, Theresa, I love to send out small surveys all throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So whenever I'm sitting here at my desk wondering what to do, I'll just send out a survey. And, from what social people want to do. Do they want to do in person? Do they want to do more virtual events? What do they want to do from a business related, like networking events, things of that nature? And I even surveyed at the end of last year, what's the industry, like what's going to be the main focus in the industry. And then with that survey and on our treasury side, I was able to come up with the top focuses for treasurers in 2024. We had 4 main topics. We wrote white papers. We've been able to do podcasts. And then we've even been able to do webinars in the market. We've been asked because people saw our podcast, saw our white papers, and they're like, oh, can you do a podcast on this topic? So I wouldn't have been able to do that like marketing push if I wouldn't have asked our people, right? I mean, I could have sit here and like, oh, what do we want to do? What do we want to focus on from a knowledge sharing this year? And I really got that from our people. So I love to ask about other people's opinions. Theresa, why do you think this helps our culture?
So many reasons. Where do I start? I mean, aside from all of the information it provides for us, I mean, even just the small surveys of finding out where people want to go for conferences throughout the year, I mean, it's just so informative. But as from a culture perspective, part of our culture is inclusion, and that's a big part. And treating everyone like their voice matters here. I mean, that's one of the things I really stress when I'm talking to new recruits is you will matter here. Your voice matters. And when you ask for feedback from people or new ideas for the firm, it sparks that entrepreneurial spirit within people. It gives them a sense of belonging, and in turn, it creates an environment of thriving through innovation, collaboration, and teamwork, which are probably three of the top main core values in our organization, and we're so proud of that. So, we've been talking about thriving, and yet people also have challenges and struggles. And one of my own personal struggles that I can share that I'm sure you are well aware of, Kerry, is embracing that change. And I mentioned that earlier in the podcast, embracing change and uncertainty and feeling uncertainty at all. Embracing that with resilience and adaptability has been one of the biggest challenges for me. So I shared, something that I spun to the positive, and I wanted to share another successful example of how I led through a period of transition. And it started, one thing that came to mind was during the pandemic. I think that was such a time of uncertainty for everyone. No one had experienced something like that, not in our lifetimes. And it was personally and professionally, a period of uncertainty when big companies were closing and people were scrambling to get back on their feet. And there was just so many things, going through my mind, and just a lot of change that I knew I needed to embrace. And at that time, we had discussed, even though the pandemic was happening, we decided to continue the growth of Actualize and develop a new office and open a new office in a different country. And although I felt as though, okay, my initial reaction was, wow, I don't know if we should do this right now. This is going to be challenging, and this is going to be a big change, and all of those crazy buzzwords make me nervous. I decided to kind of embrace that instead and say, okay, well, how can I help do this? This is amazing that our company still wants to continue their growth. We're opening an office. We're business as usual because we were set up internally and operationally so well. We really didn't have the bumps along the road that a lot of other firms had. So I decided to just spin that and embrace that. And how can I get involved? I'm really good at contracts. I'm really good at regulations. Kerry's given me the tools to be great at these things. She's trusted me and empowered me to take those tasks on for the firm, which are a big deal. And I just turned that around and said, okay, I can do this, and I'm going to help do this, and we're going to be successful. And I just kind of navigated with the team through that entire opening and transition process without any huge disruptions to our operations team, to our employees, or to our clients. We continued delivering that successful client service, and it was business as usual. And it was so amazing to feel when that office opened, the sense of accomplishment we all had, and it made me excited for future growth. And I knew I could be, adaptable to that next step in future growth, and I'm ready for it. So I wanted to share that as well. But Kerry, what has been your biggest challenge, and how have you navigated through as our COO?
Great question. Honestly, the biggest challenge I feel is that I feel really responsible for ensuring our team is thriving. And I truly feel like they are part of the Actualize family. And I've really grown over the last 19 years on how to support others. I could talk about this for hours and hours, but what I've really come to recognize is that it's much better to support somebody if you're asking them what they need versus immediately going into problem solving, which this is completely common nature to be like, oh, I have a headache. And then Theresa's like, oh, why don't you take some ibuprofen or some Tylenol, and Theresa and I, we go into problem solving mode. Like that is our jam.
This is true.
Yes. So this has been a really big growth opportunity for me. And I have to constantly remind myself that I need to listen and I need to ask people, what do they need in this moment, right? And so if somebody's going through a challenge, whether it's personal or professional, and I always say most of the time when something's going wrong at work, it's not something at work. It's typically something personally. And we just had that instance a couple weeks ago, and Theresa and I are kind of making sure that individual feels supported and what's going on with them personally as well. But this actually came up when I was going through, a really big challenge. I was caring for my grandmother who was in the final phases of her life. And, you get a lot of feedback from people. And I think I read someplace and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need. So these are questions that you can ask. And I know that I'm I'm realizing that I'm answering most of my Theresa's questions with questions back. But I think going back to why I ask surveys, I think questions are really important. So here's what you ask if somebody's going through a challenge or they even just come to you like venting. Ask them, what do you need right now? Do you need comfort? Do you need advice? Do you want to hear a story of how I made it through a similar challenge? Do you just want me to listen right now? And, I think that if you just remember to ask those questions, and I think anything that we're saying here today can be personally and professionally, but people just want to be heard. And I always say that listening is a gift. And if you can just truly listen to what people need, I think that's really going to help empower people. It's going back to Theresa's comment on empathy. They're going to feel heard. They're going to feel nurtured in that environment. And I also think that, another challenge that I think I face, and I've gotten so much better at this as well, is that understanding that each person is different, not one size fits all. And like I said earlier, if you're pushing someone to do something and it's not working, try a different strategy. And I can give an example of this with Theresa. When she first started, she had come from a banking background. Well, she worked in retail and then she was in banking. So I just assumed that she was okay with a spreadsheet, right? But I quickly came to find out that would literally put her in a spin tail panic, right, Theresa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Literally. And to this day, if I'll either do it myself or I'll ask somebody on our finance team, because I will not give Theresa a spreadsheet. I promise her I will not do that. But I think that really helped our relationship, right? Because I'm not giving her something that she doesn't want or that's going to stress her out. So really taking time to understand how your people operate, how they thrive, it's just one of the most powerful tools. And Theresa can attest to this. She's way happier on doing the work that she enjoys. You heard her talking about the contract work, the security questionnaires, that makes her thrive. She feels empowered and she feels like she can be her best self doing that versus me giving her a spreadsheet that's not going to be a good fit.
Yep.
So if I kind of just, as we're closing up, what I want to share is, keep asking questions, be curious, be invested in listening and really understanding each person that you work with, because we're all in this together. Theresa, do you have anything you'd like to share as we close out?
Other than my idea for a t-shirt that says, I will do anything but excel. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's such a funny story because it is absolutely the truth. And your strength is in recognizing that, that was something I didn't love. I didn't want to do. Could I do it? Yes. Did I want to do it? Was it something I was passionate about? Do I enjoy it? No. So it was just an easy fix, but it was something that was recognized, through listening, through hearing me out, through noticing and being aware of, what your employees want to do or when making them happy. Back in the day, Chad had said something a long time ago to me that has always resonated with me. He said something to the effect of, happy people produce great work. It's a simple formula. It's a simple solution. And in turn, that creates happy clients. So just stick to that. It's easy. It was probably much more fancier said than that, but it was just along those lines. And it's always stuck with me. And I think, the message here today is empowering others to thrive. It drives the internal piece of the firm, right? We have our happy clients. We're great on that side, but empowering your people, it really does drive internal innovation. It drives growth. It drives that entrepreneurial spirit that I mentioned before. And it does so much for people individually and as a team as well. So just continue to empower your people. It really does, it will take you to a new level as an organization.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Theresa.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Actualizing Success. Make sure to visit us online at www.actualizeconsulting.com, where you can explore our service offerings. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or your preferred platform. If you've enjoyed what we talked about today, please consider leaving a review and following us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or would like to share your opinions with us, please send us a note at podcast@actualizeconsulting.com. We look forward to hearing from you.